Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. This week we're going to go all into social media, into lead generation, into SEO, into websites, into all things digital. And I'm pretty good at a lot of things, but my one hang up always in this business is all about my marketing efforts. I do it alone here at AR, and it's not so great all the time. But I have learned a tremendous amount over the past year or so, watching Cameron Hemphill from Growth 99 do blogs, do podcasts, do videos about what he's doing to help his customers in our space to grow their business. What I think is unique about Cameron is that he's all in on aesthetics. And so I think our market is very different, very challenging. We have a different voice, different look and feel, and he has been able to nail it. He's got a lot of very notable clients that you guys would know, but he is really a marketing genius. And so he's here today to tell us all about all things marketing and what they do at Growth 99. But before we get there, also fun thing to note is that Cameron is a very successful entrepreneur who has started companies, sold companies. This is, I think, his fourth venture. And so he has walked in your shoes. He knows the struggles, and he's here to tell us all about what he does every single day to become very successful. So Cameron, welcome to our podcast.
Awesome. That was nice. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are a fascinating dude. We met, I think, a year ago on an Instagram Live talking about marketing during COVID, the pandemic. And you were doing a lot to help practices to really stay alive and to learn and grow and develop. And so let's rewind back to the early part of your career. How did you get to this moment right now?
Yeah. Wow. It's definitely been a journey. I mean, lots of trial and error. And as early on in childhood, I've always just been an entrepreneur and always just, I guess, thought for myself and questioned things and always was, why is it done that way? And why isn't it done this way? And I guess just could find inefficiencies to improve processes. And so, I was the kid that was selling, candy door to door. I was the kid that would find golf balls and sell them to the golfers, And so that was, my parents saw it early on. And then I was not the best student either, and struggled understanding why are we here if we're not learning what I'm really focused on, what I want to learn. And so I wasn't always the best student, and that's quite normal for entrepreneurs and business owners. And so as I got through school, went to college. I'm actually an avid golfer. And played a lot of golf in high school and college. And that kind of actually started opening up some relationships as golf does, and met some business owners and mentors and started doing business on the real estate level, on the technology level, which ultimately put me in a position to build some technology companies in the CRM space, in the e-commerce space, and scale those companies and figure out how to hire people, how to automate things, and build culture and really solve problems for the end user on how to further empower their lives. So that's quick on how we are here. How we got into medical aesthetics was, my wife has been in the beauty business for 15 plus years. And we saw a tremendous amount of need for what these brick and mortar businesses are trying to do, where they need to have a robust website. They need to have a way to capture reviews. They need to have a way to market social media. There's so much going on, and I can feel their pain from a business owner standpoint, because I've been there and I've worn every single hat. I've been the accountant. I've been the sales guy. I've been the CEO. I've been the bookkeeper. I've been the support guy. Shoot, I've been the delivery driver, So I can understand. I'm like, wow, these ladies are so talented and they've spent so much time, and what they're trying to do is make somebody build confidence in themselves, right? When I look at them, what is their objective? Well, people go to them to build confidence. They want to feel after leaving the aesthetics place or practice or med spa, they want to feel more confident. Am I wrong in saying that? I mean, that's why I know I've talked to my wife about it because she does all the services and treatments, and that's what her end result is. And so I'm like, well, how can they do everything when they're so focused on that? Because touching the human body is, I mean, that's a big deal, And so I was like, okay, let's see where we can help them, and it kind of rolled into a natural fit of marketing and processes and lead management. So.
Well, it's interesting that you just said about touching the human body, because I think what we do is very intimate in this industry, extraordinarily intimate, because you're talking to somebody at their like inner core, right? The things that we're vulnerable about, that we're scared of, that make us self-conscious. So I think to your point, the messaging in our industry, we have to be both, I say this a lot of the time about AR, both really sexy for aesthetics, but really smart for technology. Like you have to be all the things. And I think in our industry, it's different than say, primary care or cardiology, where you're really focused on the patient's end health and wellness journey. We're focused here on the whole person. So I think what you're saying is very true. And it's interesting. I had a marketing person in the office a few weeks ago, and she was asking about, like, what does the patient here want? Is it for her boyfriend, for her job, for her this, for her that? I'm like, no, she wants it for her. She wants it for her. Like, she cares what she thinks about herself. Forget her boyfriend, her job, her boss, her kids. It's for her. And it was like a shocking moment, because in every other really user journey in our, in our world, there's a reason why we do something, like a tangible thing to hold on to. And here it's like, nope, I just want to feel good again. I want to feel young. I want to feel pretty. I want to feel sexy. I want to feel for my own self. So I think as a marketer, your job is extraordinarily difficult to tell that story, because that story looks different for every single human. I mean, totally different. Even from, me from day to day, it looks different. So tell us how you got into like the psyche of the customer or the patient inside of an aesthetic clinic.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. It is challenging. And when we're talking with like the medical spa owner specifically, they also have a different voice than every other brand. So how do you get inside of their voice, and then how do you push that to their audience, right? It's super challenging, especially from social media, because social media is so personable. But ultimately, what you have to do is you have to have a lot of conversation. You have to understand who your client is, and you have to know who their audience is. So if you have a practice that is in Beverly Hills versus Eugene, Oregon, they're different demographics, okay? And you have to understand the landscape on a very granular level. Like, okay, what is the employment like around this area? Like, what is the culture like? Who are you servicing? Is this a very affluent market? And so you have to understand that. You almost have to even talk to some of their long-term clients as well. And so I think once you can understand that from the content perspective, from the design perspective, over time it can create a really fluid motion that makes sense to drive marketing on who their audience is to turn clients into dollars.
Well, and I think too, to that same point, not to get into like a sales pitch for Growth 99, because if you guys have heard me, I talk about them a lot on different podcasts and things. I'm a big believer in what they do. But what you're saying is that it's not a template. I find that so many consultants who reach out to us and want to be part of the marketplace or part of AR recommendations, they build a one-stop shop that looks the same for every single client. They change the colors. They might change a header 1, header 2, but it's the same cookie cutter approach always. What I'm hearing you say is that that's not going to work here. Like, it's going to have to be something almost like not geo-targeted, but in a sense, sort of, to your point. Is it Eugene or is it Beverly Hills? Is it affluent customer? Is it, the 25-year-old coming in for esthetician services? Like, there's a lot of moving parts in our industry. But I think that brings me to the idea of like the website. Before we get into really unpacking all the things that you do, just a level set here, I have so many customers in AR that have incredible social media, and they have no website. And it pains my soul to the core of who I am when I hear this, because I'm like, Google doesn't know you exist. Like, you are a no man. You're a no man's land. So how do you convince people or tell them, or what's the sales pitch to really invest in your website like you invest in your social media?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because social media and Instagram specifically has been huge for this space. And I have heard success story after success story from Instagram put me on the map, and have made people successful through that channel, and them being educated on that channel and how to monetize it correctly. And kudos to them for doing it. It's actually challenging. Some just have the natural way of doing it. But I have a story. I have a long-term client that has a very powerful social media, um, 6-figure followers, and does very, very well. And we met, and I said, I know where you're located, and I know the audience where you're located, and I know that a big portion of them are not hanging out on Instagram. And it was more of it was a conversational approach. It was nothing like, we create the best websites and we have images and content. It's like, that's just boring, right? So it's like, and so that put her in a spot of like, oh wow, this gentleman actually like cares of how he can help us go further outside of where we like to hang out, which is social, right? Which is fine. And further through discovery and implementation and seeing that forward to where it is now is huge. Like 7-figure sales, large, by leveraging a very powerful website with SEO and making sure it's indexed on Google, because an audience that is see, consumers are smart, okay, and especially in this space. And I am going to, if I'm going to get something done, and there's a lot of migration happening right now, right? People are moving all over, like scattered around all over the United States. When they're moving around, they want to find their new service provider, and the medical spa, the aesthetics practice is one of those check boxes. And they're going to go and do research, and they're going to go do a Google search. They want to make sure you have a beautiful website, that it's easy to book. They want to make sure you have reviews, a lot of them with good credibility. They're also might going to check you out on your social media before and afters. That's important too. Those check boxes equal conversion. You got to put your mind in the, and I tell this to my clients, I'm like, it's not what I want or what you want. It's what the consumer needs to do. It's why they shop on Amazon. It's easy.
Become this odd, almost like paradigm where if you're on Instagram, you get like emojis for comments, like you get the dancing girl and the smiley face, and belonging thing, connecting the Instagram provider to the practice, it's got to come full circle. And so I beat my head against the wall all the time to see these incredible, to your point, 60, 70, 80,000 followers, and there's no website. I'm like, oh my gosh, how can people find you? Like, I do bios for our conference. Obviously, you're one of our speakers at Aesthetic Next. So, guys, shameless plug, go register now. But I try to find out on the bio, like fun facts, where they're located, their practice name. And I will tell you, for at least 50% of them, I have to go scavenge the net to find things because they only have Instagram. And on their website, they have no bio, they have no fun facts, they have no nothing. It's like not even an about us section. And it's like for the person trying to figure out who you are, which I'm trying to do in that moment, I'm having to go to 15 different sites and piece together a blog you did a year ago and a LinkedIn article you were in, a magazine cover you were on, and like try to forge these 15 things together to tell your story. It is, as a patient, I'd be like, you know what? I'm over it. Done. I can't do it. So to your point, make it easy for your patient at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's like, and the world is moving at such a fast pace, and if they can't find it quickly, they leave, and they will move on, and they will go to another service provider that does have that, right? And so, especially like I look in my wife's shoes, because my wife is the audience, right? And her friends are the audience. And she has daughters, obviously they're our daughters, right? And she's running around like crazy, like working out, working, kid stuff. And if she can't find you and book online quickly, she's done.
If I can't book you online, I'm done with you, period. Like I book everything online. I would book my mortician for death online. Like, yep, gonna die next week, book the mortician. Like that's me. I automate everything because there's no time. Which brings me to the next point is I think about what you're offering and your services, because I also have this struggle personally with AR because I have a hard time with our voice is challenging. But at the same time, thinking through, as you look at customers right now, How do you convince them to go with a service with an expert who does this all day long versus trying to like moonlight as a digital marketer?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's very educational. It's a conversation. Like they either find us through a referral or maybe some paid advertising or our website. They inquire, and we have really good processes. And I think that's really one thing. We're very organized and very structured. And so when they inquire, it comes in through our channel, right? And we reach out through an email and a text message and a phone call. That's part of our initial follow up, and sometimes even through a direct message. Because what's funny is they've in some cases been easier to connect with on direct message through Instagram, which has been a new experience I've never had to go through, but we're used to it now. And then we set up a discovery call, and it's educational. Like we want to learn about them, we want to learn about their brand, what they're trying to do, what is their end goal, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to be multi-location with more revenue? Are they trying to be a single location? Are they just figuring it out? Are they still, a lot of these injectors still have full-time jobs in the hospital and are doing this on the side. So I think once you understand them and you kind of go through the journey with them and build a rapport, then you can map out a plan. It's not plug and play for everybody. Everybody's at a different place. You really do have to have those consulting discovery calls to figure out how to help.
Yeah, we call that discovery call here at AR also, because I think people don't know what they need yet until you tell them, because they're not sure it even exists, right? They have no idea where they have gaps, what their needs or desires are. And we were just talking before the podcast started about, exiting organizations. You've sold a few organizations that you built. And I think about equity funding. When they look at your site to decide to buy you or not buy you or to invest in you, they look at you first on like Google. They Google your name. They look at your website. They see who you are, what you're doing. And I think as you look more buttoned up and processes in place, and even to your point, what you guys are doing, like, they reach out to you, there's an email, there's a phone call, there's a process in place. I think in so many cases, just a lack of process is what crushes us because we're all so busy. But I think, if you guys are looking to grow to another location, to expand your med spas, to expand to new investors, like your digital presence is your business card for more than just patients. Like it's a business card, period. So I think there's, it's a very loaded deck right now with this has to be your thought leadership platform if you want to be an educator, your patient platform, your come invest in my practice because it's a really great platform. I want to be on a conference podium stage. I'm a great speaker. Come invest in me. And I do videos and content and all these things platform. Like you've got to serve a lot of gods right now with digital. And to say that I could do that on my own for our company would be like, that's a blasphemy. There's just no chance. I imagine that for an injector, it's very much the same. It's just not an option for us. So thank you for helping all of us get our stuff together. I'll keep a PC, get our stuff together because we need you, Cameron. So how does the process work? So if I go through a discovery call, because this is, I think, where the wheels fall off. I go through a discovery call and I'm like, you know what? I want to work with you. What happens next? How does an account become an account with you and decide where you focus your efforts first?
Yeah. So after the discovery call, it's well documented actually. Lots of notes are taken down, and it's usually done either on a screen share. If not, because a lot of the times that the people we're talking with are running around as well. They're entrepreneurs as well, and we're mindful of that. So we'll jump on a call with them, go through the motions, and we ask them a tremendous amount of questions, right? And learn about their brand and learn about what they're doing. We learn about their tech stack. Like that's really important to us. Like I'll ask them, I'll get to questions where I know they didn't even know I was going to ask, because they're like, hey, I hear you guys do websites. Like how quickly can you build a website? And I have to kind of pull the reins a little bit. I'm like, hey, we can't just get on a call really quick to talk about how long it takes to build a website, because I want to know about your business and your business structure. And so tell me about do you have a website? Do you have a brand? Like what is your business, right? So you kind of go through the dialogue there. And then you understand their tech stack. Are they doing online booking? Do they have the ability to capture leads on their website or on their social media? Are they running ads? In some cases, we ask them what their revenue is, right? And do they have multiple locations? And then once you can kind of go through that and document it, then you can create a plan and a vision for them that's going to help them scale, right? And then once we actually go through and they say, okay, I want to sign up, they sign our order agreement, process the invoice or whatever, we have what we call is an onboarding form. Okay. And it's a series of like 35 questions that they have to go through. And it's probably annoying to them, I would assume. I wouldn't want to do it, but it's crucial and it's part of the process because we ask them, like, how do you want the diversity of your website to represent you? Okay. Which is like, we need to know that stuff. And we colors and fonts and, all that stuff. And what websites do you not like? Which websites do you like? And so it's information gathering, right? And then after that, once that comes back, it triggers another process that books what we call as our kickoff call. Okay. And that's where we bring in a project manager, customer success, a content writer, the account executive. We have a huddle with the client. We record that call, and then we talk about the onboarding process from there. And then we book our content interview call on that call. And then our content writer conducts a full interview, which is recorded, and that exposes a lot of content. And then it pushes into production and then onboarding, and then eventually fulfill the obligation of the onboarding.
So what I just heard you say is there's a lot of stuff to do to kick this thing off. So if you're listening right now thinking about why is my website not taking off? Why am I not getting famous? Review what Cameron just said one more time. That's why. Because it's a lot of work, people. It's a lot of freaking work. And, you haven't even touched on SEO yet. You haven't even talked about like organic and search and all, before you even get there. Because I often hear the first thing I get asked is, how do I increase my reach on my website? I'm like, well, let's figure out your website first. Like step one is let's look at your website. But you mentioned something there that I think is really remarkable that people forget about is the diversity on your site. If you want more men in your practice, put a man's face on your site. If you want to have more skin of color or more young people or more older, whatever it is you want, people go where they look like the people who you're advertising, right? We want to look at our kindred spirit. And if I see no one on your site that looks like me or your social media, frankly, I may not belong to you. Like, I don't feel like I belong with you. So I think what you just nailed is like those minute details can speak volumes about your brand that people forget about or gloss over because it doesn't seem like it's part of the big picture, right? It's like, who cares if I've got a young person and an old person, whatever. It's like, no, this is like really, really critical. So I love the minute detail in which you're talking about things. But you mentioned tech stack, which is one of my favorite words. We live by that word around here. So tell our audience what you mean when you say tech stack.
Yeah. So I come from a very lengthy technology background. Okay. And that's where my entrepreneurship has always been, was okay. I got out of college, I got into real estate. Okay. And I love negotiating deals and I love communicating and relationships. Right. But I quickly, again, saw problems. I'm like, this is how you guys run a real estate transaction? I'm like, this is crazy. This makes no sense to me. Like, why is it not organized and structured and has processes? And so anyway, my tech mind came out and ended up building a CRM and raised money and sold my shares in that company. And ever since then, I've been all in on like tech and digital. And so when we talk about tech stack, right, it's a tech stack is really like, what technology are you using to run your business? Like, what CRM do you have? What EMR do you have? In this space, are you doing online booking? What is your website built on? What is it hosted on? What social channels are you using? What's your POS look like, right? What does your payment processor look like? Shoot, what is your email provider? What is your newsletter provider? Like, that's kind of the tech stack within this environment, right? And they all have to talk. They all have to talk together, whether it's through an API, application protocol interface, or through some level of feature that has to be activated within that service they're using that they're not leveraging, right? So once you have those built and can talk together, and I feel like people should map them out and understand exactly what the process is. And that's what takes their customer through the journey to let them scale and actually work smarter versus harder.
And your tech stack delivers to you data. That's what I try to explain to people all the time is when your processes are not integrated, you lose the ability to have end-to-end data translation. Like, I can't see the person who clicked on my call to action on the site for lead generation and then actually confirmed, came in, did the consultation, booked, spent money, came back again. Like, that's a never-ending cycle. So as we built AR, that's what we live by all day long is the tech stack. Because we think about for an EMR company, we're trying to quote unquote stack for you what you just mentioned: online booking, POS, telehealth, CRM integrations, questionnaires, consents to a text messaging, because people will look at us and say, if I were to buy all these pieces independently, I'm going to spend $1,000 a month to have one user on all these things. Or I can spend $16 a month and have it with AR. So we live and die by tech stack. And I think people, if you've not lived in it like you and I have, we've lived in it, we have in our company alone, we have, 15 different things we're using all day long, every day. You don't appreciate the fact that integrated services that talk to each other, the beauty and the simplicity of that is like, you just don't know it unless you've never had it. So you use the word API. We talk about that a lot in our company as well. You guys hear us talk about APIs all the time. So integration end to end, I think, is huge because you're doing a lot of lead generation. You're obviously bringing them into the practice and getting them booked in. So walk us through, to that tech stack idea and the process follow up and like reaching out. What is the perfect, like in your dream day, the perfect lead generation process for an account or for a practice? We say account here, but for a practice.
Yeah. So for lead generation.
Yeah. How do we get them in the door?
A lot of times, they can come in through the website. They can come in organically. They can come in through search engine optimization and having forms, contact us forms or call to action forms on your website, right? And we encourage those throughout the entire website, and through our best practices, we put them all over, even on the service pages and with the booking button as well. Because do they either want to inquire, that should capture a lead, or do they want to book and just pay and go? Again, you got to think about the consumer. But when it comes to how you get them in the door, a lot of it also has to do with paid ads. And especially now, like I feel like in the last 2 years, we've almost gone like 10 years. We're almost living in like 2030 in like 2 years somehow with everything that's taken place. And what you guys need to know is Google and Facebook, as you know, but they're publicly traded companies, and Wall Street demands profits. Like that's the responsibility of a CEO is to provide profits for its shareholders. Like that's by definition. And when you're on that level of scale, such as these big giants, that's their job. And so they want you to pay to play. So they will tweak their algorithms to basically position themselves for success. Like they're already 10 steps ahead, right? So unfortunately, like even though there's still opportunity for organic influx of traffic, paid advertising is extremely important. And with Google landing pages, driving them to your website, inquire, Facebook ads with sales copy, ad copy, pushing them to a landing page, filling out a form. But it doesn't stop there. Like the lead gen is one thing. And I'm telling you, like we've spun up leads for people where they haven't called or they don't have a back end process. And so I'm like, well, why are we doing, like, what's going on? Like, let's stop this. Or they're doing that and they don't have a system. I'm like, well, you need to be following up with the leads, either calling them, emailing them, or putting them on a drip campaign or SMS or something, and you got to do it fast, right? Because there's a stat out there that says, like, if you don't respond to a lead within, I want to say it's like the first 60 seconds, the chances of converting actually drop by like 60 to 70%. I don't remember the true numbers, but it's close to that. And so it's generating the lead is hard and tricky, which is important in getting them in the door, but getting them in the door to having a process in place is huge. And then I talk a lot about how do you monetize that person? Okay, because your cost per click may be like, call it $50 for a lead. You convert them at maybe it's an offer, a discounted like Botox buy-in or something like that. We then upsell them, right? And then also get a review out of them, have them talk to you about social media, get them to rebook, and then have them become a referral generator for you. So you can monetize these clients, because they're going to show up and you're going to perform because you're the all-star in this space. So light bulbs start to go off when we talk like that.
Well, my favorite light bulb, I used to do a whole like training series for Galderma, and I would talk a lot about cost per click and cost per acquisition, because when people think about what they're going to pay a provider in the room, so go with me here, so just a mathematical, prowess. They think about, well, toxin, to your point, Botox, it costs me $6 a unit. We're charging 15. Our spread is $9. We're going to pay the provider a percentage of $9. But you forgot that the $80 you made in profit, you spent 50 of that to get the patient in the door. So you not only gave away all of your profit basically for, at that point, which is a loss leader, is a good thing to do for that particular moment if you can monetize it to your point. But now you've also paid a provider on all that because it still costs you money to keep the doors open to do marketing efforts. Like there's a big misnomer in our industry around that cost per click is a real number. And in many cases, if you're a surgeon, it could be 250, 500, like it could be a very, very high number. And if they don't book that rhinoplasty, if you can't convert, that's, I always say, if you're not in the habit of converting leads, don't do paid social, don't do paid, pay per click, because you're just going to waste your money. To bring them to the front door and not treat them is the same as bringing them through as a lead and then not processing it into an actual booked consultation. Like to me, it's the same thing. Be like, you know what, you showed up here today, but we're not going to inject. We're busy. Like it's kind of the same. It's like the same mentality to me. And so, and we deal with it here all the time, like online booking. That's why we use online booking. So like if you can't do this for yourself, just at least, if nothing else, put on your site a call to action button for online booking. Because then at least those who cannot manage their own leads will get, just by sheer passive, know-how, folks who will actually go on and book for themselves. So you at least maybe 50%, maybe 35, I don't know, but better than 0%. But I'll work with a company who does this, a big manufacturer, and they send out lead forms, right? So people go on their site, they fill out a contact form, and then it goes to practice. So we're running pilots, we're doing things to them all the time, different activities, and it's like, where do these go? Well, we don't send them out to the practice. Like, well, who's going to follow up? Like, what's the point of us buying pay-per-click space, if you will, quote unquote space, keywords, to get them in or a paid ad if no one's going to actually send out the contact to do the follow-up with the lead? Like, my head was beating against the wall for a good hour. Like, this makes no sense to me. But these are sophisticated marketers, Cameron, sophisticated people whose entire lives have been spent marketing. And we're still falling off the radar on this part about process follow-up. So if I'm in a practice right now, walk me through what I need to be doing today to get this figured out, because I'm not doing it. I'm not doing follow-up. What is your recommendation for me, whether it's tech stack, working with you guys? How do I get buttoned up on follow-up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your way of putting it. That made total sense. If you're going to spend money on advertising, make sure to have the tools and resources in place to follow up, or else just don't do it, right? And so, in order to understand like how to build out a process, you almost have to architect it in the way that you'd build a house, right? Or bake a cake or something, right? You can't put on the fixtures and countertops before you lay the foundation, or else the wind could blow and the whole house falls down, right? So if you lay the correct foundation on, like, architect it, put it on paper, put it on a whiteboard, put it on a PowerPoint, or whatever you got to do, and figure out what are all the processes, right? Okay, we have a website, we have social. Where does all of my traffic come from? They can call, they can text, they can DM, they can fill out a form, they can find us on Facebook. So like all that stuff, our website. Okay, now you know your point of entry. Like you know where all of them are coming into. Now you have to, once they fill out a form or click a button or make a phone call, it has to go into a system. Okay, and that system needs to have the ability to conduct workflow automation, right? Workflow automation, where it has the ability to create a task and assign it to a team member to make a phone call. Maybe it sends a text message that's automated with merge fields and links and stuff like that, and an email that sends it, hey, welcome, and whatever the content is, right? But it's automated, because somebody could fill that form out on a Monday evening or a Sunday morning when you're not working or you're on a hike or something. But now they're in your funnel, and if they don't book now, they're learning about you without you doing anything, because you've basically taken the time to remove yourself from the business activities and work on the business and build out an infrastructure that's scalable, right? And so if you take the time to do that, where I think a lot of people and entrepreneurs, they just start running too fast, and they wear every single hat, and they forget like how to work on their business, and they just get in the same mundane activities. So if you can architect it and build out your process and build out what your tech stack is, whatever tool you want to use, whatever website you want to use, whatever it is, right? Have a process and have a system in place, and then make sure everybody in your team is trained on those processes, because then you can just plug people in and remove people, right? Plug and play. And then once they actually become a client, then you can further understand, more of the client, how to rebook them, understanding their friends and family and interests, putting them on different campaigns, and targeting them differently. So I hope that helps answer your
It does,
question.
and you've got this big idea. I shouldn't say big idea. It's a must-have idea that you should run your practice like a business. Like I've heard you say that as part of your talk at Aesthetic Next. Like you're a big believer in that, as am I. That you've got to build for today what's going to be you in 5 years. And if you don't run it like a business, it won't be a business. Like I just feel like that's at the core of who we are. If you don't want to have a real practice, then fine. But if you do, you have to run it like a real business. And I think about lead gen as one of these principles, where we have a hair restoration clinic here, Maxim. That's one of our customers, AR, and they are like ninjas at this because they incentivize their team to book those leads, right? Like you call into their practice, you chat in, you whatever you do to them. The minute that they get your contact, they are reaching out to you. Hey, how can we help you? Like an abandoned cart almost. Like, you've abandoned your cart. Don't forget, you tried to buy this, you didn't get it bought. Let's get it paid for. And they are incentivizing their team to get those leads booked. A lot of our clinics do that, right? A person's only job in their practice is lead gen and retention. Basically, I'm asking them to book first. I'm calling them thereafter to ask for the review if I'm not doing it automated. I'm making sure that if time has lapsed, I reach out and follow up. Like a person's only job is the customer lifetime value, basically from lead gen to retention. And they're incentivizing them. So if you have a front desk person, which I like to call the patient concierge, these are great things to do, in and out of free time, but it's not enough. It could be a full-time job in a big practice for someone whose only life goal is to keep your books totally full with new and recurring clients so that you can expand to another location, new injectors, new devices and lasers, etc. But you've got to be willing to invest in it and know that this is your holy grail. This is like the fountain of youth to be able to get these leads and actually book them in. And you mentioned before the cost of acquisition, if it's $50, I think what you said about really architecting that is critical. And I'm going to go home from this podcast and do that myself of like when they book with us or when I pay for them, are they a Google review? Are they a follow-up? Are they an upsell? Are they a product regimen that I'm going to get them on? Are they a treatment plan subscription? Are they memberships now? Like what are the 15 things I need to do from that one lead to make that $50 pay me 50x dividends, which is really, could be the case, right? If we're good at our jobs. So I don't know, you're spewing some knowledge over here that I wish I had a pen and paper. I'd just start writing stuff down. You're getting me on fire.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If they do come in the door, right, and you book them and you're doing the service, that is the point for you to shine, right? And that's why you're here, right? That's the whole reason why you have this career, right? And so that's your moment. And own that moment. And then if you own that moment the way that I know that all of these individuals have passion about, then that patient will want to come back. And they do want to tell their friends and family how great you are and the experience they had. And they do want to give you a Google review because people like talking about good experiences they had and they want to share those, right? And so if you do that good job, then it's going to ultimately improve your overall practice and performance.
Well, I'm going to take a left turn here because as I'm hearing you talk, my mind is racing as it often does on these podcasts. You guys know I'm like butterfly, shiny thing. But I'm thinking about keyword stuffing. I had this discussion this morning. First of all, domain verification. To your point about Google, guys, if you don't have a verified domain and a sitemap, tell your web developer right now to do that, or just go find Cameron and be done with it. Just hire Growth 99. But I have a big love of blogging. I love to blog. We don't do it enough here at AR. I think blogging is a great way to communicate things in long format. But for many, many years, blogs were thought about as being keyword stuffing hotbeds to get your SEO up. I think over COVID, people started actually reading them. Like, oh God, they're actually reading our content. It's not very good. It's just SEO words in a big string sentence. You guys have lots of blogs on your website. Walk us through whether or not we should be blogging. And if we do, what's the end goal of that? Do we care about what it actually says, or is it just a big place for Google to have a fun heyday with keywords?
Yeah, great question. And this topic actually comes up a lot internally, and we do a tremendous amount of research. And we're Google partners, so we're actually constantly communicating with Google on what best practices are. What is the overall actually like industry standard read rate versus SEO benefit, right? And it comes down to like overall blogs actually have a pretty low read rate. unless like you're a blogger and people follow you and you publish like new daily content and that's your thing, right? But traditionally, it does have a low read rate. Now, it does improve overall performance for search engine optimization at a very high level. And you got to do it correctly, right? You got to post it. It's got to be indexed. It has to have keywords in it. It has to have linkings in it. And then also like taggings with social media and the actual tags with keywords. And so we do post blogs for our clients on a monthly basis. I encourage them to post more. We actually do 3 per week at Growth 99. And it's a lot of work for sure. But there's a lot to share, and there's a lot of value to share. And so I think it can't just be like SEO jargon. It's got to make sense, right? But it's definitely like SEO is more on the high side versus the overall read rate, if you will, if you look at the analytics. But you don't want to get yourself in a position where somebody's reading your blog and it sounds like you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know who's actually reading it. You can't really just, you got to figure that out. So
when I first came to AR, we had a person who was working on our SEO who just stuffed keywords everywhere. And so you look at the like header 1, header 2, and it's just like a mumbo jumble of Google keywords. Like, what the hell is this stuff? And so our number one step when I came here was like, wait a minute, people actually look at the website, like they actually read it to find out about our company. This cannot occur. So like if you want to do that, at least put it in a blog if nothing else, but don't put it on the front page of your site with like 87 words in a header. It's like, oh Jesus, this is not going to work for us. So I have fallen victim to this problem. But I think, as we think about that, people who are blogging and doing things in tech stack, I recommend Otter. If you guys that don't know what Otter is, even if you're working with Cameron's team, to be able to do like speech to text and tell someone your story in your own voice and let them take those words and then put that really back into a readable content format. Otter is a great tool to have. And then now we have the launch of GPT-3. So if you guys are on the beta for that, to be really nerdy, you can do some AI-based blogging to help you with, you give it a few keywords and a few end goals, and it will build your blog for you. So if you haven't looked up GPT-3, prepare to be scared, to death, but also be cheering for AI in the future. So shameless plug for the tech nerds out there. Moving right along, though. Let's go to YouTube now. So I know many of your clients have very busy YouTube channels. They have busy Patreon channels as well. What are your thoughts on how we use YouTube and how you guys integrate it into a site and where it fits in the grand scheme of a digital footprint?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have we did a podcast on just this topic specifically on our podcast. YouTube is it's owned by Google, right? Some people know that, some people don't. And it's a search engine, okay? And it might at this point be outranking generic Google search. If not, they're hand in hand. They kind of first and second throughout the day. But there is a tremendous amount of volume on YouTube. And if you publish a video, like people actually like watching videos more than they like reading articles. So your audience is more engaged. And there's a tremendous amount of search engine optimization benefit from it as well. Because in the bottom of where you post your YouTube video, you can create, the title, and then you can actually put a lengthy description in it. You can put links in there. And if you're constantly publishing knowledgeable content, then it's going to help with overall conversion, overall rankings. And what we call it is it puts you in a statement of authority, right? So if you're publishing like really good, call it educational content on YouTube, it puts you in a position where you are the statement of authority and you're the expert. And so it helps with overall conversion at any level. So we're very big fans of YouTube in that regard.
I think what you just said is also important to note, like as a conference director, is becoming a statement of authority or a thought leader is, again, to think about your website. If you're in our industry, you're trying to build trust with patients, right? Trust us. We're trained. We're so good at our jobs. Outcomes. Look at our amazing B&As. We are ninja injectors, but also believe and trust us because as an industry, we're thought leaders. And hey, other injectors believe us and trust us. I look at Shelby Miller. I know she's a client of yours, or even Lori Robertson, or all these people who are big, Julie Kaplan, these big names. Their Instagrams are equal parts education for their fellow colleagues as they are education for their patients, right? They're serving really two distinct audiences in much the same way, because to your point, people are getting a lot smarter, patients are getting a lot smarter. But like Shelby has become a thought leader on, let's say, tear troughs is one of her big things, because she publishes about safety, efficacy, product choices, as much as she's posting about her great results in doing tear troughs. So you trust that she is the person to go to learn. So I want to watch all her content. Anil Rajani, he got famous in this industry because his YouTube channel is prolific. My God, he publishes 7 YouTubes a day. But you can teach yourself about products if you're an injector from watching Rajani's, YouTube channel. And it's helped his overall brand awareness and his brand, identity, if you will. So I think that YouTube is so underrated for people who don't want to do it. It's a lot of work, I will tell you, videos and things, but there is like a cookie cutter. I think you can kind of get at least into a template to get started. But I feel like as all social media combined, YouTube is the most watched. I think it's number one for across all categories. My little boy watches it every single day, all the time. I watch it at least once a day. I'd rather go to YouTube than Instagram, personally, because I want to learn something. I feel like I'm enriching my life on YouTube. I am killing my brain cells on Instagram.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, well, it's probably been about a year now, but I wanted my disposal went out in my sink. And I didn't want to call the plumber. I'm like, what, I'm just going to figure this out. It'll be kind of a fun project for me and my kids to do. I'll get my hands dirty or whatever. Watch the YouTube video, right? Now that YouTube video, the guy that published it was a local plumber, right? So I'm like, oh, he knows what he's doing. Maybe I should just call him and, not deal with this. I ended up doing it myself, but a really good use case right there of why that was effective. And I did learn, and now I guess I know how to do that. So.
Well, I am from this little bitty tiny town in Northeast Arkansas with like population 7. And this guy I went to high school with, who no one even knew his name in high school, super nice guy, but relatively unknown, not a big presence. He has 1 million YouTube followers doing like woodworking and cooking with his kids. 1 million followers. This guy is unassuming, sweet, no need to be famous, but his content is very compelling and fun and exciting. 1 million freaking followers. I can't get 2,000 at a static record, and we're producing like how to use the system videos. Like there's got to be some key here. But I have to tell you that I feel like YouTube, you can like legit learn how to build a time machine on YouTube. Like you can do anything on YouTube. And so for us as content creators, especially learning about new cameras, new techniques for editing, is it Premiere Pro? Is it DaVinci Resolve? Like, all these things, YouTube is like the holy grail for us. And I know for injectors, it's very much the same thing. So guys, go explore YouTube. Go learn and grow and develop your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a call yesterday, and my advice for this gal, she has a very successful practice, and I said, it sounds like you're doing everything right. I mean, you have a very sustainable practice. What are you doing with video? What are you doing with YouTube? And so I'm like, I can't see anything online just with my quick search. And so I advised her, I said, you should get a videographer and start publishing all this content you're doing on all the services, start pushing that out there. And so she's an action taker. Like she's definitely going to go do it, and then I really got her thoughts turning. I said, you can monetize your YouTube channel, by the way, and it's an income revenue machine, right? Yep. And so I think it's like if you get past 4,000 views, you do start getting paid through YouTube sponsorships.
We get ads all the time. The day that I had my first ad, Cameron, I almost did a back handspring. I'm like, oh my God, we have ads on our YouTube channel. Like to have to skip through an ad to watch like a thing about how to do online booking was like I feel like we'd made it. Like we had an ad, we'd made it. Now whether or not it's going to amount to anything, we don't know. But just that moment of all this work, people are actually watching it. But like right now in our studio in this podcast, we have 3 cameras going. So one so I can watch you. We have 2 lights. I have a videographer, audiographer, I don't know what you call them, a marketing person who does video all day long. We're on camera switching feet. Like it's a lot of work to do it at that level. But for every one of us at that level, there are 55 more who have a camera, a lavalier mic off their iPhone, and they're just shooting content. And they are just as successful as all of this stuff. And so people reach out to me saying, how do I have your setup? I'm like, well, what is your goal? If your goal is to be a company doing professional content, that's a different goal than I'm an injector wanting to get my message out on YouTube and be loved and admired and thought of as an injector who's, an authority. That's a much different goal. So I think know your goal and know your role, and you can, outfit your studio accordingly. And I think the same thing for your website, right? As you said, is it to get bigger, to get more patients, to diversify your audience? Like, what is the goal? And then build accordingly to that goal. So I'm aligned. But yes, disposals. I had to do my washer and dryer hookup with YouTube because I'm scared to death of electricity and getting electrocuted. So I watch YouTube for anything that deals with electricity. Guys, fun fact about me: electricity scares the hell out of me. But anyway, you never know. Okay, so before we go into our last foray here, I want to talk about one more thing with Growth 99 because I feel like this is where you guys really, really shine. Is a customer signs on with you. This is the same with patients, and they've come in, they're wowed by you. They get that first amazing feeling. They've got progress, but you keep going with them. Like you become their social, digital, all things bestie, like for the rest of their life. So tell us how, like on month 7, when things are humming, where do you fit in? What do they expect from you? And how do you continue the relationship and keep morphing and changing as they morph and change?
Yeah. No, great question. I mean, obviously it's a tremendous amount of work, like front loaded, right? The first 30 to 60 to 90 days is probably the most intense part of the project, right? So once they come out of onboarding, and for us, that means like the website's successful, the ads are live, they're trained on how to get Google reviews, they're trained on our process, we know who they are, like check boxes are kind of checked off, and we stamp it for approval. We have ongoing consulting meetings with them, okay? And we analyze the data. Like we are very, very big on the data. And so, okay, like where are your leads coming from at an organic level? How long are they staying on your website? Why are they leaving your website? Where are they leaving your website? And how can we change some things and do some A/B testing and figure out where to improve, right? And then also, I tell them this a lot, is your website's a journey, it's not a destination. As your business changes, you're gonna have new services, you're gonna wanna have specials on your site, you're gonna wanna remove the specials, you're gonna have holiday specials, you're gonna hire somebody and want a bio. You're gonna fire somebody and take down that bio. Like it's part of the process, right? And so it's an ongoing thing. And then if you're running on paid ads, like we want to look at the paid ad report as well. So there's whether you're running it or you don't, we expose all that data, want to go through it, and then make changes and adjustments where it's going to make your CPLs, your cost per clicks, more advantageous, and where we can improve. We also look at reviews and reputation management a lot in this space. I think there's a lot of tools out there that can help automate that, but it's actually a very, very big like final conversion factor when a patient's looking. So we want to make sure that you're also continuing getting those reviews. Some people think that, oh, I have 50 now, I'm good. It's like, no, you need new ones relevant all the time. Keep going, build it into your process. And so it's ongoing consulting and where they want to go and exposing the data, and then how do we make changes to improve.
Well, I had a clinic just this past week that had no current reviews and no current pictures. And so Google shut them down on the Google review, like the Google, when you search and it comes up with the business profile, they shut them down. They had to submit a whole slew of new pictures. They had to get new reviews because it was like a dead site. It wasn't. They just hadn't asked for reviews in a year because of COVID. So I think those reviews are critically important. But to your point, we get asked a lot here about, can I give an incentive for reviews? No, you can't say I'm going to give you, if you'll scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But I think what you're saying, if it's so compelling, if the story is so compelling, the treatment, the journey is so compelling, they're going to want to review you, right? They're going to want to say, gosh, what a great experience from booking all the way through to checkout. This was seamless. I loved it. Cameron was a great injector. He did such a great job, whatever that is. I think to even ask for the review, people are scared to ask. And so sometimes that one little action will give you 50 more than you had last week.
Have you ever had a good experience and didn't give the business a review? We all have, right? I mean, I've bought stuff on Amazon I absolutely loved, didn't give a review, and I've been to great restaurants, didn't give a review, probably because I wasn't asked or forgot or whatever. But if I was asked and reminded, I probably would more, right? Now, I'm not going to do it every single time, but if you gave me the wow factor, I'm probably more compelled to do so. But if you ask, at least your percentages go up, right? So the way that we like to go about it is I talk about the checkout process a lot, where you actually like render the services, process the money, say goodbye, right? That moment right there, in my opinion, is so critical because that's where you can get the review. That's where you can get them to actually like pull up their social media and tag you like on a story or something. Hey, you got to come to XYZ Medical Spa. You got to check out my girl or whatever. right? And tag them, because you don't know how many followers they may have. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But what they're doing is they're exposing you to all of their followers. Like that's free marketing. All you have to do is ask, and then you can, and they like to do it, as long as you gave them a good experience, that's why we're here, right?
We hope. But, I think I look at dentistry. Dentistry is always, I'm good friends with Ben Hernandez from SkyTel. We talk about dentistry is always 10 to 20 years ahead of us. And you never leave the dentist without booking your next appointment. Like, I've never left a dentist in my entire life without being forced on the books in 6 months for the next cleaning, right? It's just like what they do. It's an automated robot of the thing at the dental office. We never do that here. We never say, okay, let's go ahead and book in 3 months for your Botox, for your Jeuveau, for your Dysport, or in 6 months for your lip retouch, whatever that may be. I think we're hesitant here to book them out because, oh my gosh, what if they cancel? And, they're on our books and we're going to lose money in the cancellation policy and all these things. Well, that's why in dentistry you get a postcard a month in advance, right? Saying, hey, don't forget next month you got to come back in. We may not be that archaic here, but I think that there is a value to your point in the checkout process. When they have had a great experience, they're going to want to book again, right? They're going to want to get on your books again, especially if you're booked out for months, because they know that if they don't do it today, they're not going to get in for, 6 months. But they're going to want to review you. They're going to want to book again for the next appointment. They're going to want to give a review about you on their social media and on Google and on wherever else. I think you get them, you strike while the iron is hot, if you would say that. And dentistry does a beautiful job of it. We can learn a lot from how they do their checkout process, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I went to the dentist recently, and I remember I filled out this little card with my own handwriting on it.
Yep.
And that showed up in the mail, and I looked at it, I'm like, that's my handwriting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so creative. And I remembered it, and I rebooked,
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty creative.
And how much work is it for the practice? Just putting them in the mailbox, right? Because you did all the work. They just made the cute little card and put a stamp on it, which they did bulk postage at 10 cents a postcard. But when it comes in with your own handwriting, you're like, whoa, time machine. Like, when did I do this? And I think there's an instant connection to it of like, oh yeah, I booked that day. I remember going in, I had a great experience. Like, I think there's some like nostalgia, if you will, almost about seeing your own handwriting. It's not a form letter. So practices, there's it may not be automated, but there's a fun thing to try at least to get people back in the door. Because we could ask about recurring patients all the time. How do you book them? How do you auto book them? Like, you can't auto book people. They need to pick their time, pick their day, something, but you could at least get them on the schedule at high level and then send them a nice card that they wrote themselves to get them in the front door. So few nuggets. Okay. As we end here, you and I had a great discussion when we first started talking today about your gratitude walk. And you mentioned your love languages. And so I want to leave our audience with learning more about you as a person and kind of what fuels you, what turns you on, what puts fire in your belly, and about how you think about your day and really, how you have this incredible stamina and excitement and creativity 24 hours a day, because it's, as someone who knows it, it's very, very challenging to do. So give us your gratitude walk.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I follow a lot of elite performers, and I'm a big reader. And I'm a big audio person when I work out as well. And so I'm constantly learning, and I'm obsessed with learning and implementing new things, right? And so I'll kind of like my morning, okay? I get up at 4:30 a.m. every single day, Monday through Monday, let's call it, okay? My alarm goes off at 4:30 on Sunday. And first thing I do is I review my goals. Okay, I go through my goals, and they're mapped out from health to family to business to finance to the big wins and stuff like that. Okay, so I go through that, and then I go on my gratitude walk, and then I'll get into that because I know that's what you want to hear. So the gratitude walk is something that I came up with of something to help me just remind me of like what took place yesterday and embrace everything that took place. And so at the family level, at the personal level, at the business level, at the client level, and also like embrace my surroundings. Like, I'll take a moment. And when I say gratitude walk, I'm literally walking outside at about 5 a.m. and it's where I'm at. It's dark currently at that time. So I look at my surroundings, and I like look at nature for a moment, and I embrace that. Like, oh my gosh, like, we're alive, like, life is good. Let's go have another great day today, right? And I want to start off with the right mindset. And then as I go through that transition, I go into okay, so what are my targets? Like, what are my specific targets for the company? What are the targets financially? And then I'll go through my family as well. So I have two daughters. I have a 7-year-old. Her name is Jane, and I have a 4-year-old. Her name is Violet, and I'm married. And so I've read a book called The Five Love Languages. I've read it a few times. Great book, by the way. If you guys haven't read it, really helps you understand your loved one's love language, so you can actually match what makes them feel loved versus what makes you feel loved, because you can have different love languages. And so I go through their love languages. And my wife has a couple. My youngest daughter, hers is physical touch, so hers is quite easy. My 7-year-old is gifts and quality time, so I make sure to give her that. And then my wife loves acts of service and quality time as well. And words of affirmation are big for her. So I focus on that because your day can just start going, and if the first thing you do is like open up your phone and look at email or social media like right when you wake up, it's almost like that's what's driving your day versus you taking ownership of your day and your time and giving accountability to what matters most to you, right? And so I don't look at the phone or anything until about 7:30, something like that. So that's what I go through.
I roll over and open up Slack first thing in the morning to see what's happened overnight. But I'm opposite of you. I go to bed about 4:30 in the morning. So I go to bed when you're waking up because I'm a night owl. I love the night. So I sleep from like 4:30 to 7 every day or 7:30. And so by the time I get up in the morning, the day's already gone, right? Because I've already like lived half of it. So to your point though, I notice on days I wake up and things are chaotic on Slack, or we've had a bad DM come through on Instagram. My whole day is like, it's a cloud, right? It's a black cloud because I've started my mind, my psyche of that morning in this funk. And I need to stop and think about being more grateful and prioritizing. But I think our focus here is about surviving in aesthetics. I think what you talked about in that, brief snippet there about love languages is critical as a boss as well. I'm sure as a boss of other people, it's important for you to think about your employees. What do they want? Do they want a raise? Do they want time with their family? Do they want to be told that they're great at their job? Do they want little tchotchkes and rewards? I think there's, as a boss, as a person who employs other people, understanding what motivates your employees, both, home life and work life, it's a massive benefit. We're doing a DISC profile class at Aesthetic Next because I think DISC is very similar. Are they a high D, dominant? Are they sciencey, conscientious? Are they, introspective and intuitive? And there's so many things in personality that are really important. But I think that the 5 love languages boils it down to like the human need. It's like on the Maslow's hierarchy, it's at our base level we have to feel good about ourselves. So
yeah, I like that you bring that up, and that's something that I could definitely start implementing at our organization, and definitely going to take one of those key nuggets from you to look at seeing how we can do something like that, because that's important. And if you can communicate on what makes somebody feel special because of their love language, because of where they came from and their roots, it means a lot, and culture can really help with an organization to be sustainable and everybody have fun and think they're contributing.
But I think to that same token, you're doing it at home and at work. Like I am great at work. When I come home, I'm not the same person. I'm a monster some days. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I've used all my best hours at work, and my little boy gets the worst of me. Like I know that's for sure because I'm like, oh, he'll forgive me. My employees won't. But I think what you're saying is if you start your day with your family in mind, company as well, goals, but also your family as your center, then you don't use up all your energy by the end of the day to pour into them. You're pouring into them, in your mind, at least first thing in the morning. So I think with some, it's a Simone Biles thing at the Olympics, and, the Olympics is like a weird time right now for us. We're hearing about mental health and about getting your center right. And like, I'm not warm and fuzzy. Nothing about me is warm and fuzzy at all. But I feel like right now that the time is ever to really focus on like grounding yourself. And so I appreciate the fact that it's part of like, when I said, what do you want to talk about today? It was part of your top 4 list. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that you are investing in you and your family and your company. It's just, critically important right now. So hats off, Cameron, hats off.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the time and very thankful that you guys had me on. And I look forward to seeing you guys here in Dallas. I'll definitely be there. My wife's coming with me, so she does work on business development at Growth 99. She does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but she does participate at the shows with me. And then we have another team member that'll be coming with us as well. So there'll be three of us on set.
Well, I haven't heard Amspa, and she was sharp as a tack. So she's just as sharp as you are. So that's good. You get two for the price of one. But for the record, you've been an awesome guest today, talking about things that I am totally intrigued by, not so good at, and really filling my cup with things I should go from today right now and go do for our company and for our website and for our Instagram. So I appreciate, on a personal note, all that you've shared. And I know that our listeners feel the same way. And guys, if you want to get Cameron's company involved in your business and your practice today, right now, then go to growth99.com. I believe that's the right website, Cameron, and click all the buttons on there. You'll have 10 different options to schedule a consult, to learn more. You got lots of choices. And you guys have a Growth 99 University as well to learn all the ins and outs of what you guys are doing. Give us more places to find you and more things we should be knowing about with your company.
Yeah, you can obviously find us on Instagram, Facebook, all the social. We have a YouTube channel. We have a book out, 5 Ways on How to Grow Your Medical Spa with Social Strategies, which is really cool. Our university is a really cool, it's a coaching platform. It's an online platform on how to take your medical spa to the next level. We get into like mindset, tech stack, productivity, social media and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, like, we're always trying to think of, okay, how can we help, and what is the need beyond what we currently do. And so all that can be found at growth99.com. And then, of course, you can always reach out via email or sales at growth99 too. So.
Well, and so guys, Aesthetic Next, he'll be there at a booth with his whole squad, but also in our business track, talking about how to run your practice like a business. So be sure to catch that lecture. And I think you'll probably be doing things all day long in and out with clients, potential clients and leads and things. So find Cameron. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what he looks like. If not, Google him. But find him, find his wife, and go book your time with them. I know it'll be an amazing time well spent for sure. But Cameron, thank you so much, and we will see all of you guys next week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tiffany. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.